I'd like to speak about the subject of Massada. Massada is located down by the Dead Sea, right across from the Dead Sea. And if you want to know the history of the Jewish people, this is one of the greatest places to really grasp. Take some time, but you can really understand the depth of Judaism. Because on top of Massada, which is really just a big stone, a huge stone. It's not a mountain, but it sticks out and it's flat below, and the walls are tremendously steep, going up to the top of Massada, and so it is quite defensible. So if you want to find a whole life of the Jewish people, you'll find it on top of Massada, and it's there as if it were yesterday. On top of Massada, you'll find a synagogue. It's a round synagogue, and you can see the seats and the form of it. You'll find the mikveh, and the mikveh is the ritual bath that the Jews used in their daily life. And it was interesting that when they found it, the day they found it, it was announced over the radio, and a rabbi took a bus and ran up there with his tape measure and measured it and announced that this mikveh, this ritual bath, is the same dimensions as it's supposed to be written in the literature of traditional Judaism. They uncovered tefillin, which are the phylacteries that go around on the head and the arms, and they found different pieces of parchment from the 5 books of Moses, and from the prophets' writings, and from the other writings. And so all this occurred in the 1950s, when one of the great archaeologists, Yigal Yadin, led an expedition, and they worked diligently and according to the rules of archaeology to uncover everything that they found up there. Now all this happened in the year 66 CE, and what was going on is that the Jews were being routed by the Romans, and the Romans were on the attack, and they took over the country, and one of the last bastions that the Jews could hide away in was on top of Massada. And what happened was the Romans wanted to crush any kind of resistance and Jewish presence in the land of Israel. So they finally surrounded Massada, but it was too steep. They couldn't get up there. And so that you could, if you're on top of Massada, you could see the Roman camps below, where they camped out for this siege of Massada. And the people stayed up there, and they felt fairly safe. However, the Romans had an idea to build a ramp. So they started to put rocks on the west side, and they just built a ramp more and more and more and more. And the Jews were ready to throw big boulders down on the people who were building the ramp, and to stop them from building it. However, the Romans used Jewish slaves in order to build the ramp, and the Jews on top could not throw boulders on top of their brethren. So the ramp went ahead, and it was getting very close to being finished, and the Jews on top had to make a decision. There were between 900 and 1,000 people on top living traditional Jewish life, and rather than suffer through slavery and through being concubines, they made a decision to commit mass suicide. And it's a very sad saga, but that's just what happened. So that's one story that's right before your eyes, and that's the obvious one and the dramatic one. But there's another story, the story of where did these Jews come from? How could they be keeping all of these commandments? Because we're not going back, 100 years, 200 years. We're going back 1,900 years, and the Jews were living as Orthodox traditional Jews. And this begs the question. And to me, this is the main question. Where did they get all this information to live as Jews? And there's no doubt, once you study Massada or go up there, that they did live there, and they did live as Jews. So the answer is a big one, and this answer cannot be presented in this presentation here. It would take quite a bit of time and thinking to figure it out, and it will be announced that we will put this in another presentation. It'll be a longer one and a more precise one, and it really causes someone who delves into this question to really put on their thinking caps. But I'll give you a hint that the desert is very still, and if you sleep out in the desert, you know this very well. And the desert is very slow, especially back in those days when there was transportation was either a donkey, a horse, or a camel, or by foot. So, if you really want to know the depth of Judaism, one of the greatest places to think about this and really go into it is in Massada. So we could speak quite a bit more, but this is Avraham Moskowitz of Tehillim Cards, and I am asking you to become active in the biggest game in town, in becoming who you can really be by bringing your spiritual aspect up to its optimum. Thank you.